Welcome back to the Dr. Joe Show. It has been some time.
Too long.
Thank you for joining us.
I wanted to start this with some spice because we haven't done one in a while and people love, so literally some spice. What? Not sponsored by Doritos, Pharma.
Oh my gosh.
This is what we're going to put our coordinators here on the spot. Can you do a quick audit of... I know this will fail, but
all right, so let's just read some of the ingredients. Corn, vegetable oil, and then that's corn, canola, soybean, and sunflower. And then maltodextrin, salt, citric acid, monosodium glutamate, potassium hydrolyzed corn protein, red 40, yellow 6, sodium diacetate, yeast extract, cheddar cheese, corn syrup solids, garlic powder, some other things. Disodium inositate and disodium guanylate. Those are
carcinogen.
Those are newer food additives to the chip industry, but
colon cancer.
I think they're preservatives because they're fairly new. I mean, monosodium glutamate's been around a long time.
One of the worst ones you've seen so far.
It's pretty not ideal.
Had to get that short in there because people love that. How's it going, man?
It's going all right.
You got a good pod plan for today.
It's been a while since we posted, folks. So thank you again for tuning in. I wanted to talk about weight loss, the whole interest that the United States and the world has on the GLP-1 drugs, semaglutide, tirzepatide, and so forth, and there's newer ones on their way. But my question is, why would GLP-1s fail, and why would Weight Watchers work? Let's break that down. Weight Watchers, been around a long time, great program. I've known many patients that did wonderful with it. If you follow the protocol, if you're compliant. So this is where we start getting into how GLPs work, how phentermine works.
Let me push back a little bit because GLP, from the data I've seen, there is a plateau on most of them, right? But the data shows like 6% weight loss, 14 for the injectables, like 6 to 7 for the orals. So that works. People watching right away would say, well, it works.
I mean, there's absolutely plenty of people that it's worked for, but there's a lot of people that it fails for.
Non-responders?
I think there's non-responders. I think that there's a lot of cherry picking that goes on when clinical research is done, and that doesn't come from clinical research sites. It comes from the study design. And there's not much you can do about study design if you're a clinical research site.
Fair enough.
But I mean, the biggest example is Entresto. Now let's switch to heart failure for a second. The trial that was on sacubitril valsartan, it was 10,000 strong. It was the power of 10,000, roughly, right? Do you know how many people were excluded from the study? It was in the supplement.
High percentage.
90,000. So my question is, when you can exclude 90% of your original cohort,
real world population,
like that, then sacubitril valsartan, it doesn't become as generalizable as you think it is. And there are many people that get on that medication and they have intractable thirst, and they'll go into heart failure and they end up in the hospital. It's a small percentage, but it happens. So we have to assume the possibility that the same thing happens with any and all drugs. That's why when new drugs come out, you have to look at them with a little bit of scrutiny, not just the first year, but even 5 years into that drug being out. You have to watch for any and everything. So the GLP-1s, they alter your perception of reality. Phentermine alters your perception of reality. They don't burn fat off your body. So what burns fat off your body? Ketosis, or intense exercise, or just metabolism, like just going and having a calorie deficit, right? I mean, all the basic math that we talk about. This is your metabolic rate. This is what you need to eat. This is what you need to lose, and etc. So why would a GLP-1 fail? What do you think are some of the practical physiologic reasons why a GLP-1 would fail?
I think from what I've seen, even in the studies, people plateau usually due to non-compliance is one. So the GLP, I feel like it trains you what you're allowed to eat and what you can't eat by like giving you a hard time in the bathroom, right? Like that's really people's like parameters.
This constipation diarrhea thing.
Yeah, like
right.
Okay, if I eat this, I'm gonna have crazy runs, and so they learn their own parameters, and then they control their diet that way. But they know how to cheat too. Oh well, there's a party this weekend, so I'm just gonna skip my dose this week. I've seen that.
So they could skip a dose. That's right. If you're not supervising their injections, right?
Self-administered is a lot of these people.
Yeah.
In our study.
Or I mean, and look at what Matt and Trey did with South Park. They did a fabulous weight loss thing. It's on Paramount Plus. People should watch that one. It captures all of the issues very well. Good job, Matt and Trey. Right. Medically, they got so many points correct on there. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are people pocketing their doses and selling it for a premium, because the availability of this is sometimes tenuous, and now it's the beginning of the year. All the insurance companies and Medicare are showing their true colors.
Well, and then nobody wants
to pay for it.
The compounding pharmacies are done.
But nobody wants to pay for it anymore.
Right.
So because we've already had this last year, so 2024 was the year when insurance companies and Medicare were like, oh, look, all these people are willing to pay out of pocket for GLP-1s. We're not going to pay for them anymore. That's the trend I'm seeing right now.
Even for diabetics, or?
Even for diabetics. They don't want to cover anything anymore. Some of them. So
it's all cash.
This is...
and a lot of them, Eli Lilly and some of the bigger ones, Boehringer, Novo, they're doing a direct-to-patient pharmacy program now, like online pharmacy.
Right. I think there's a lot of maneuvering going on, hopefully in service to patients. We can only hope. But so
consumer choice.
My answer for why GLP-1s fail is not only side effects, not only intolerance to common side effects and rare side effects. I think it's because you can't inject something into here when you have something wrong up here. So there's eating disorders, right? Eating disorders are tremendously challenging. There's a reason why psychiatrists go off into a separate tract and delve into eating disorders, and there's a very small percentage of psychiatrists that only do eating disorders because it's a very complicated set of problems. And it's not like everybody is way over on the spectrum of body mass index of 12 or body mass index of 90, all the extremes. But there's a spectrum. So even just indulging in one soda per day could be it could be an eating disorder. And it's when that person gets off of it that they see the lack of it, and they'll experience some sort of withdrawal. Not clinical withdrawal where you end up in the hospital, but a withdrawal of its own kind. Sugar. So eating disorders, I think, are not being addressed with the GLP-1s. They weren't addressed with phentermine, and they're not going to be addressed with GLP-1s. So then why does Weight Watchers work? Okay. I saw a fabulous video recently on the Homath channel. You all should check out Homath. He interviewed a guy.
It's actually funny stuff.
Let's see, a guy named BK Human Psych Engineering. So this other guy has a YouTube channel, and this isn't me, just bowing down to some other YouTube channel. They are bigger YouTube channels than mine, but I recognize that this is probably one of the biggest videos that's hit YouTube in a long time. But I mean, it's important enough that I want to tie it into this discussion. So what would Homath and Human Psych Engineering, what would their discussion on PSYOPs have to do with diabetes and weight loss? It's because of America. That's
freedom.
Why. It's because of freedom. Because the most important thing they said in that video, and I'll try and find the link and put it in the description box. The more hungry you are, the more compliant you become. And I quote BK from that interview. Think about this. In America, we value freedom above all else. We have the Second Amendment. We are the only country on the planet founded with boomsticks. And there's no other country like us, and freedom above all else, right? So the more hungry you are, the more compliant you become. So
if you're disciplined, if you're virtuous.
What a perfect medical problem to enslave a population with that values freedom, but metabolic syndrome.
Yep.
Syndrome X, insulin resistance. So you have a majority of Americans that believe in the freedom, a majority of Americans that say, I should be allowed to eat what I want. And the delusion there is that they conflate their food choices with freedom.
And you also have the capitalistic system on top of it that has figured out how to make things effectively cheap as hell for us. On top of on top of freedom, you have affordable to everyone. Matter of fact, the worse it is for you, the cheaper it is.
You got government subsidies going into corn. And then
is RFK getting rid of that?
We can only hope. We don't hear much about what he's trying to do.
I think half the stuff in here he wants to get rid of, these red dyes.
Yeah, red 40, right. There's a big association with ADHD.
I'm gonna eat that later.
maybe if we do a calorimetric test.
Before and after.
No, I mean like set it on fire.
The thing go to burn on the cover, it's on fire.
Well, I mean, we would have to get a nice physics lab set up here, and then and then put the beaker there and set it on fire, and then heat up the water and measure the temperature of the water and figure out the number.
What you said is very interesting, because with freedom comes side effects. With capitalism comes side effects. With globalization comes side effects. We're in the middle of tariff war right now. The Stoics, the ancient Greeks, had a thing called temperance. That was one of the 4 virtues. Temperance would apply here.
Yeah.
Don't overeat. Eat only when you're hungry. Like your quote says, the more hungry you are, the more compliant you become.
We should unpack this a little bit. Compliant.
To me, that's temperance. Or compliant with the system, or compliant with your own... What's good for your body.
Well, again, people should watch the PsyOps video on the Home Math channel from recently. So people need to watch that. Yes, it's an hour and 7 minutes, but you need to watch it. It's really good.
I watched like 20 minutes of it.
Okay. But you feel compelled to finish it at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
it encapsulates what the issues are really in this country. But it is mental. And
it is mental. Now,
and it's become a way of life, because we are consumerists first. If America's good at anything, it's consuming.
Compliance, though, okay?
Yeah.
Vulnerability. It's hard to be vulnerable, because if you're vulnerable, you're more prone to get angry. You're more prone to get sad. You're just more prone to be manipulated. So by definition, and people in PsyOps know this, when you're hungry, you're more suggestible and you're a little more compliant.
Yep.
And so when we tell patients that you have to learn how to be hungry, well, you have to learn how to be vulnerable. You have to learn how to be uncomfortable and not let
most people
all these influences around you, including these devices, manipulate you. Because brainwashing happens all the time. Swiping is brainwashing. Every time you're swiping and scrolling, you see something, you have an association, and then you lose it and you go to another thing. Well, any association that you may or may not have had with that thing you saw, if it set off any sort of emotion or perception, and then you have to move on to something else, that's brainwashing. Because you didn't really have time to appraise the thought you had with it.
Yeah.
And they unpack that a little bit more. But
it's true, because emotion and grief, despair, they rent in the brain, right? So Socrates had this argument of hell is possible because the soul can be removed from the body and be in eternal grief, eternal anguish. And heaven is possible by the same regard. He tried to prove how the soul and the body are different, and by using logic, like Socrates is known to do. But this is true. It comes with being human, man. Like, You can't separate the soul from the body until you're dead, and those emotions are embedded into you, and then your body triggers further feedback loops. Leptin. I mean, you know the hormones better than me. Integrin.
Well, yeah, leptin is
incretin or whatever.
Yeah, so leptin is when you're supposed to stop eating.
Satiety, right?
Yeah, and then when you get insensitive to leptin, that's when you don't know that you should stop eating. And
but even
ghrellin's
before,
the opposite. Ghrelin is, growl, bite, eating.
Even before these things, marketers were figuring out how to manipulate for the purpose of driving food outcomes for McDonald's. If you look at the highway, there's still billboards when you drive from here to Phoenix, here to San Diego. People can't go 3 hours without eating. Like, it's insane. So all these billboards everywhere, McDonald's next stop. Then they made it cheap enough.
Yeah.
Now they even have it where no humans are working there.
No.
Just go in there. Have you been to McDonald's lately?
I mean,
this show's semi-sponsored by McDonald's.
Do I go to McDonald's then?
Yeah. Have you ever? When's the last time?
I don't remember last time I went. I mean, if they brought tallow, if McDonald's had tallow, I would happily be sponsored by them.
Well, someone who's gone recently, you go in, there's self-serve kiosks. You put what you want. There's only workers there are like the people preparing the food, and that's it.
So
pretty soon they're gone too.
So you don't deal with any of that, yeah.
Pretty soon they're gone too. It's gonna be a robot.
Well, yeah, and then we have more AI, and we wanted to do a podcast about AI with Ox.
We got to work on that.
I know he's probably been kind of busy, but
we
got a lot of other guests.
No one's too busy for a Zoom like ours.
We got a lot of guests planned for you folks. We have return guests planned. Yeah. We have some new guests planned. So
I'm looking forward to
I'm excited. I'm excited. We know we've been busy. A lot of non-podcast stuff. A lot of life. A lot of good stuff. So
yeah.
So keep it here. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Man, that was good. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Bye-bye.